let know how many participants we have. I'm going to hand over to the president of the Central Coast Sky Surfers, Scott Cairns, to introduce you, Jocky, and then we'll get started.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Thank you, Guy. Jocky, welcome. Thank you very much for agreeing to speak with us. We're absolutely delighted to have you. I'm sorry? Bit of a delay.
Sorry about the delay.
Yeah. Everyone, thank you so much for attending our talk tonight. As some of you would know, we've been doing a bit of a winter series of interviewing pilots of different skill sets, from cross-country flying to SIV to all types of things, competition flying. And we just thought it was a really timely a good time in which to put this all together, given COVID and our relative separation from each other and at times from our sport. So it's been a wonderful success, and we're really grateful to all the people we've had in the past. And I guess without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Guy, our Vice President, who's very kindly reached out to Jocky and invited Jocky to come and speak tonight. I'm sure it's going to be a fascinating night. Guy, I assume you'll run through a bit of a format for us and just let people know whether they'd like to kind of raise questions. And Jocky, please let us know if you've got a preference. If you want questions along the way, or you'd like them saved towards the end, just please let us know, mate, and we'll work around you.
Okay, cool.
Beautiful. Thank you, Guy. Over to you.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Jocky. Everyone should know about Jocky. If you don't already, we've sent the little blurb around on him. He comes here regularly to do SIV and XC courses with Roger Stanford. I was fortunate to do an SIV, which Jocky didn't quite make, and I must say I learnt lots about what I should and shouldn't do on that one. It was highly recommended, but I did get to play with Jocky on an XC safari around Gunnedah, etc. And that, I must say, learnt a lot there. So Jocky's got a wealth of knowledge, which he says he'll share tonight with. We're going to start off with just some basic, I guess, tips, insights. Basically let Jocky do his usual presentation, and then we'll open it up to questions. As Scott said, you just push the button to raise your hand when we get to that point. But in the meantime, over to you, Jocky. We've got a range of flyers here, from the coast to inland to experienced inland pilots. We're trying to get more folks to go inland. We've just opened up some sites about half an hour, 3/4 hours away from us here. They're going to be a bit more challenging, so we thought, let's see what other education we get from a master like yourself.
Okay, so whereabouts inland is it, Guy?
The Wattigans. We've got some old hang gliding sites there that have been cleared out. Royce and some others here have managed to get the Forestry Commission to allow us to clear some of those sites so we can reuse them.
Brilliant.
Short takeoffs, longish glide to landing. Obviously, just needs the right conditions.
Wow. I mean, and are you guys, you're able to get to the coast and start soaring now, aren't you? Some of your sites are open, or are they closed?
We've been able to soar all the way through COVID. I must say our Central Coast Sky Service did a very good job with the local regulators and national parks, police, etc. And we've been able to fly all the way through. Obviously, we're very conscious of the community and the likes, but it's been winter, so we haven't had a huge amount of flying. Hopefully your season might kickstart there soon for you.
Okay, good. I mean, we're right in the middle of our season. I mean, I'm teaching today. They're doing, the students are doing an exam outside. We're off flying on the coast today ourselves, but it's not as a beautiful a coastline as Australia. Yeah, so I didn't quite, I thought it was a sort of questions and answers and a chat, really. I didn't prepare a talk as such. Happy to go through cross-country or any advice you might want from that. Any tips on preparation, both mentally and physically, and with your kit for starting the season? Because we have, we always have a sort of problem here in the UK. We have a long layoff because we pretty much stopped flying in October. And if you stayed in the UK, you wouldn't fly again till March. So when March, April comes, it's quite thermic and quite strong. It can be. and that's when people are rusty. So we have a spike in accidents, and I guess it would be the same for you. So what we advise is people make sure their bubble's bigger. You can't pick up where you left off. And that's a mistake a lot of people make. They think, oh, I can still sort of fly the 4 hours that I did at the end of the season. That's not true. You can only fly half that, you know, your mental capacity. So it's all a question of making sure you set realistic goals. And also it's your kit, making sure you do pre-flight checks and take your time to really, really make sure everything's right, because it's the little things that you forget. You know, we had a couple of incidents here where it's just the silly things where they just literally didn't, you know, do their leg loops up and things like that because they're busy talking and setting their equipment up. So they didn't go through their usual protocols. So yeah, it's one of those things where if you're going back into it after a layoff, then make sure your bubble's bigger, really. And also going inland, make sure you've got everything organized. All your preparation could be done now. Do you have something like XE Planner?
Yep.
Right. So if you get to these sites, so the hang gliders must have done XCs from these sites. So you can look at where they went, because they'll use exactly the same thermals. Even though it was 20 years ago, the thermals are in the same place. So they'll have used the same thermals, the same track, the same route as you will. So if you sort of look at that, you know, past track logs or past, you know, even magazine articles, if it's that long ago, you can actually do all the route planning before you even get there. So that when you get there, the decision making is minimal. You just literally focus on getting up, getting to base, and then you know your next climb because it's always going to be there. It's just a question of timing. It'll be in that place above that town or that road junction or that ridge. And you just go there and wait for it, and sure enough, it'll pop up. It's a question of timing. And the more simpler you can make the flight, the less you have to concentrate, and therefore the less energy you use, and therefore the more time you can spend flying. So all that research can be done now whilst you're in your rooms. And then you can plot it. You can even do, you know, go to the next thermal. You can use them as turn points, things like that. What I'd also suggest is getting a crew of you going. We always have a pod generally. So you have a pod of like-minded people. So you'd have, you know, whether it's the same sort of political views or whether the same humor or whatever, but you have a pod of people that you enjoy being with. And you organize a retrieve. So you might have a nerdy guy that loves to read the weather, that can show you the lapse rates. And it can also sort out the kit and the instruments. And then you've got the guy that can fly really fast, so he can take a group. You know, so you bring your different skills to that pod of pilots. And then you travel together with that pod. And it makes it a lot more enjoyable. You know, the banter afterwards, the meeting in the pub, the debriefs, and also the preparation. My son's dog. And yeah, because sometimes you might be thinking, oh, I'm busy with work, I'm not even thinking about flying, and then you get that call or that WhatsApp from the pod group saying, hey, looking good for this weekend, and you think, Christ, I wasn't even thinking of this weekend. And then they make you get out, they make you do things which you probably weren't going to do, and you think, oh yeah, I suppose I better get out. And that pod keeps you going. So yeah, we have little WhatsApp groups where we spur each other on, and that's what you should do with this inland site. You know, do all your research, get a good pod together, and make it a really enjoyable experience. I think the worst thing people do, especially guys, they're not very good at communicating when they go to a new site, and so they get there on their own, and they're like, well, and they don't know what to do, where to go, and they don't want to ask anybody, they then ruin their day. And you've got to think to yourself, that day is costing you time and money, you know, time away from your family and friends, and money maybe out of work or whatever. So you've got to give 100% to that day and not even think about work and pressures of dog walking or anything. You've got to think of that flight. And the great thing about paragliding is once you take off, you can't think of anything else anyway. It's all about the flight. But a lot of things that put people on the ground is worrying about the car, who's logistics and all that sort of rubbish. But you've got to be selfish and you've got to say, right, that's it. Today is my day and I'm off. So yeah, this site would be good for that because you look at it with a different view. You don't have that same kinesthetic as I always go to Blackheath and we always do this and we always get, you know, it's new ground and you should have a new, fresh look at it. Because a lot of, I'll give you an example, in the World Championships, things like that, the local pilots often don't win. They think they're going to because they know the area, but they never do because they don't look at it with fresh eyes. They don't look at it reading the weather and they just look at it as, oh, I always go over there and it always does this. So, you know, it's important to always have fresh eyes. And that's what a pod helps you with, that fresh eyes, that fresh, you know, other people's views on it. And you think, oh yeah, I didn't notice that. And it's that debrief after. It's informal, but debrief afterwards is great. And going on the same radio and just enjoying. But, you know, I'm very sociable. I don't like flying cross country on my own, but I love it if I'm with someone. And, you know, everyone's different. So you might want to turn your radio off if you're in a pod. But as long as you're in a pod, you've got that safety cover as well. Because everyone's looking out for each other, that diver buddy system. So yeah, that's my advice on your new site.
That is excellent advice, Jocky, given that we're in the midst of winter here. It's starting to get longer days. It hasn't got warmer yet, so we've got a couple of months to go, but that's great advice. So if we all take our refreshers on the coast or the likes, just get a flight or two under our belt, get our equipment sorted. We head inland. Tips, what do you find people make the most mistakes doing? And what would be your top 3 tips to improve your thermaling cross country?
Okay, first of all, get your kit sorted. One thing I will say is when you're flying on the coast, be careful of sand in your gliders because it really degrades the material. So the thing is, it's abrasive and it always goes in the back, in the trailing edge. And even if you're packing it, you know, it's grains of sand. And we've got that's our inspection table there. And we take out, I haven't got it, but we have jars of gravel, sand and stones that we empty out when we're servicing gliders. And it destroys them. You know, they put pepper holes in the glider material. So when you're going to go inland and you've been flying on the coast, take your time and empty the sand out. And one really good tip is on a breezy day, you know, you have those lovely golf courses and things behind your takeoffs. On a breezy day, just ground handle and then turn the glider upside down. Don't bash the leading edge into the ground. That's really bad. But on the grass, just turn it upside down and hold the trailing edge and just flick it out because when it's upside down, it doesn't scoop the sand in the leading edge shark nose and just flick it. And so get it all ready. So that your kit is ready. You've charged all your batteries. And that's another thing. If you're going to cross country, make sure all your batteries are charged because you're always planning for the best. You're planning for flying for 4 hours and you think, what's going to happen at hour 4? Oh yeah, I'm going to be thirsty. I'm going to have a headache because my helmet isn't fitting right. My battery's going to be flat. So you've got to get ready for all of that. Take little bits of food that you just nibble at because there's no point eating by the time you're hungry. You have to eat before that. It's this sort of thing where your sugar levels crash and you make mistakes. So all that preparation can be done easy. Water, and then research on the weather and make sure that you've got the right direction, the right task in your head, and it matches up with the wind direction. So it might be heading to, you know, in the direction of Gunnedah, and then going to Keep It or to the west of Keep It or whatever. And it's about having that mental image in your head so you don't have to start thinking in the air. You just go. The less you think in the air, the better. And nail ground handling because the worst thing is you get to a site across country and you're self-conscious or you're scared about inflating the wing, and that's putting you off to a bad start, even before you've started. And people do, and they sort of, oh no, I'll wait for a breeze, or oh, I'll wait for it to die down, or I'll wait, it's a bit too cross. And they're all making excuses not to fly. You've got to be able to get there, look at the conditions, yeah, everyone's good. You can take off in nil wind, crosswind, side wind, strong wind, without even thinking. And that's all practice you can do on the coast. So, you know, okay, if it's blown out, go and practice Cobra launch. Go and practice, you know, the Aussie launch with the back risers, and just practice so that you're so comfortable that when you get to a takeoff, and it is a bit marginal or whatever, you're not worried about that. Because if you start off as a negative at the beginning of your flight, it just gets worse. So you've got to think, right, you know, I'm happy with ground handling, and you can never get enough of it. In fact, there'll be ground handling out there in a minute, because you just can't get enough of it. And ground handling in all sorts of conditions, on all sorts of gradients as well, because a lot of people are scared of steep gradients because they think they're going to get lifted off the ground, but they're not. That's actually safer, a steeper gradient, because actually, if you think of it, the air's coming up. So when your glider comes up, it stops dead into the air. It doesn't lift you up necessarily. And people don't like that, so they go for flat. And if you go on flat, it will lift you up because it goes into the power band just at the top when it's flat, so it lifts you off your feet. So people all think, oh yeah, we won't go to the edge because what if something goes wrong? Well, it's not going to go wrong because you're not going to get your takeoff wrong, because you've got to get your turning right, you're going to have the brakes in the right hands or whatever. And you don't doubt, so that when you are going to go, you give that final deliverance, that little gurr in yourself that says, right, here we go. The final look around and boom, you deliver it, not thinking about, I'm going to wait for it to go wrong to correct it. You are going to go. So the mistake people make that it just is insane is they get into a takeoff, they launch, and they stop. And they wait, you know, to control it. What are you waiting for? And it's just turn, drop your shoulders, because what happens is if you stay still, yeah, there might be lift because of the wind or the angle of the slope, but the glider's going down now. You need to get it up. Yeah, it's good. Turn, drop your shoulders so you load the lines and go. Don't waste time. And that's, we're just making a film, a short film on this, because the amount of people that are waiting for it to go wrong to fix it, why are you doing that? If it's up and it's good, go. Because nothing worse than being cool on a launch and cocking it up. And most people do, you know. And so you think, right, I'm here to fly. I'm building my wall. I'm getting everything ready. I'm happy with all the kit. I still do it. You know, I look and I think, hey, I'm going that way. I'm going that way. You know, towards a high riser. Good, okay, got it. And it is literally, right, this is it. I'm off, boof. And I'm not going to stand around being cool on takeoff. I'm out, because the exposure to risk is that bit. And so as soon as you're airborne, you're fine. You're in the beautiful blue. You settle in and off you go. So yeah, nail ground handling. Be positive on a takeoff. And then once you're in the air, give yourself a bit of time to get ready. But don't be afraid to hook that thermal and get in close. Because it depends on where you fly, but the trees are your friend. Because you think, well, if you look down, you see trees, at least you won't get hurt if you go into them. In fact, a lot of acro pilots, rather than do it over water, they do it over trees, because they know if they're deciduous, nice, fluffy trees, they're just going to crash through the canopy of the trees and just hang there. So they're fine, but treat them as a hill, and treat sometimes, especially a place like Manila, they're almost like cliffs. If you get the range of a whole line of trees, that's a cliff edge. And so that's where thermals will release, because you've got difference in texture and shape and temperature. So the thermal will release from there. So don't be afraid of getting in close, soaring the trees. And where you can, you know, if you're really close, you're not sure about it, weight shift away from the hill, so that if a deflation came in, you're already weight shifting away, therefore it won't turn into the cliff. So if you're not sure, always weight shift away. But don't practice 360ing close to the hill, being aware that there is different shapes. So it's not very good, 360 by a cliff is totally different to 360 by a hill like this. But again, that's something the coast guys, you can practice, 360ing and getting close. And what you do is you get used to the kit. Obviously it has to change because of your wind and the conditions. But what I do is I get a new glider and I'll take off and I'll fly. I'll push out and I'll think, yeah, I could do a 360 here. And you think, a bit tight. And you think, okay, I'm going to go for it. And you have to go committed, but you deliver the first 90 degrees. You drop into the first 180, and there you're accelerating. That's when you're facing the hill. Okay, now you've got speed. So you've got control now. You've got more control than you had on the first 90, 180. So now you can get it round. And you go round, whoa, and you pull out, back in the lift band. Brilliant. And you're learning. What you're doing is you're teaching your chimp that it's okay. You can do that. So that when you go for a thermal and you go in the thermal and you have the 360 in the thermal and track off away from the hill, then your chimp will be all right and it won't make you hesitate at the worst point, which is a downwind point. Because that's when you go, whoa, and you can still back out, don't worry, but you've got to learn to just commit. And because when that thermal comes through, you can't let it go. You've got to stay in it. Even if, with our high aspect ratio wings, we're sometimes spinning in that bit of core just to get away. And it's rough at the beginning, but once it leaves the hill, it tidies up the edges and it's so nice. And then you're away. That hell you've released below you and you look down at your mates doing exactly the same, but you're away. And then it's cleaner, calmer air and you're at base. But that first bit is the rough bit, and that's the bit where you need to focus. But the strange thing is, when you're low, your chimp is happy because you are close to the ground. So your deep fear is being high because we're not supposed to be flying. So what happens is you can really wang the glider around, wing overs and hook the turn in and 360 and go, whoa, and you're throwing the glider around. You're literally doing this in front of the trees or cliffs, and you should be happy with that. And the kids go, yeah, I'm cool with that. And then you get to cloud base, and it's a bit rough, but the glider is only doing this. And you think, oh my God, whoa, 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 whoa. And that's not logical fear because the glider isn't really moving. And I always have to say, I say now, when it's really rough, I say, well, hang on a sec. What angle did the glider go when I said it was rough? It was like, well, about there. You think, right, well, when I was down trying to get up, I was doing all this so that it was under control. So what am I worried about now? It's only altitude. So again, you've got to teach yourself that as well, that sort of coping with it. And staying at base is beautiful because it cools you down, especially in Australia. I love drifting off with climbs, drifting with the wind. And as soon as it sort of peters out, going and getting into that cyclic rhythm of going and arriving at the perfect altitude where you're at the bottom of the strongest climb section. And that's how you do your speed to fly. So it doesn't necessarily mean you have to wait at cloud base and drift. You can literally get to cloud base and go. But you're always aiming to not go through the inversion, but to be right at the bottom of the strongest lift, because that will make you fly much faster. Your speed to fly will be much quicker. Woof, that was a long answer.
Question on that, Jocky.
That was great.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm talking again.
Hard and fast rule.
This isn't my dog. This is my son's dog. He's a gamekeeper, and this is his gun dog.
I've got a British short hair that joins me for most of the talks.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Well, everyone showed the dogs. Oh, lovely.
Just a quick question, Jocky. Do you have any rules about exiting a thermal? I guess I was taught now, I don't know if this is 100% correct, that often you've got this thermal going up and you've got a bit of a downdraft on the outsides. And I got into something of a habit of just like getting on speed bar, just sort of like, I leave the thermal, often I hear my sync alarm go off, so I do a bit of rear riser steering, get on about half bar. Is there any golden rule to that, or does it really depend on the day, on the weather, on the conditions?
It depends. So if you imagine the thermal is doing it exactly that, Scott. So what is going up, and the edge is just, it's only very close. So the stronger the lift, the closer that turbulence is. So you can go through it. So you think, you might think, oh my God, this is a massive thermal. I've got to leave it now and get ready for a really bad one. But it doesn't happen because it's very short. But as you get to the top, you see the cloud turning doing this, and it looks terrifying because that's quite a big billowing, but actually that's doing it really slowly. And so it's actually, the exit is a lot smoother the higher up you are. But because of the suck, you've got this tablecloth where it's all drawing in. So the first section of leaving a thermal is actually the air going into it. So you're going into a headwind. And we have this problem more in sort of Brazil, not windy Brazil, calm tropical Brazil, and Colombia, where there's no wind anywhere. All the wind is going into the thermal. So when you leave a climb, you're going into wind. So you do need your speed bar to push out. But what I would do is go through the turbulence first and then squeeze the bar on and then be more efficient. But I would, rear riser steering is great, and you can either pull down or you vector the riser. So you just push it a little bit to get tension. And that's actually a bit more efficient. Pulling down creases it and it changes it quite a lot. But quite often, just sort of pushing the risers is a good one, because it's like being a spider with the legs on the web. You can feel it. So as soon as it goes light, you push it. And that pushing stops it diving and it slows it down. But if you push and nothing's happening, then you let go of that riser, you go straight for that brake because it's about to go. So you've got that lovely feel of what's happening through the risers. So you always have your brakes in the fingers, but I put my hands on the back risers and I push at speed, and I try to get a balanced full speed as fast as I can. And then I feel it through the risers so that you know what's coming. You've got to be very quick to react, but quick to back off. And you'll see all the competition pilots, they have to bar it everywhere. Otherwise, they won't even get in the lead gaggle. So barring is important to build that, again, that tolerance up, that educating and convincing your chimp that it's okay. Because everyone thinks, oh, bar is unstable, big collapse. When, no, it makes it more stable to a point. So, you've got to learn. So barring, getting used to going half bar, squeezing on full bar, when you've got gliders of C upwards, is a good thing to learn. Because sometimes if it's an interwind, your polar curve's way better on a bar. And if it's heavy sink, it's way better on a bar. And if you get two liners and things like that, then they've got to be on a bar. But most competitors, you think they're really cool for school, don't you? They're in their coffin pose and they're cruising at 70 kilometers an hour, traveling on their two liners. You think, how the hell do they do that? When I go half bar, I'm absolutely crapping myself. But they're moving their hands all the time. And they don't tell you that, but they are. And they're permanently doing this. The glider will look beautiful, but unless the conditions are absolutely nice, they're always checking the glider. Yeah. They try to do as little as possible, but if it's turbulent, they'll be acting on the brakes should anything happen.
And Jocky, we've had a few inversions at the end of our season here. What are your tips for breaking through inversions? I always seem to get stuck at the inversion and bounce along for ages.
Okay, patience is the key on inversions. I always say to myself,
skill, you might remember.
Huh?
That was my skill at XC camp, wasn't it? The lack of patience. And Roger's there, can testify to that one. Thanks, Roger.
Yeah, it's. I would say, where else would I be? Because patience is key, and I'm very impatient. And if I'm at inversion, first of all, I say, do I need this? Do I need the extra height? Can I get to where I want to go from this inversion height? And if the answer is yes, then great. But that answer is often you're convincing yourself in your own lie. So be careful of the answer you give yourself. But if you need to go up, then just think, right, well, there's nowhere else. You drop your heart rate, you have a drink, you stop looking at your other mates that are flying better or further or anything, and you just drift around and you get your breathing right and you just focus on where the lift comes from. And you're thinking, right, I'm in a smaller bubble and I'm just focusing on where that core is. And when you get that core, it's only half a core, it's tiny. But every turn in it, even if half your wing is in it, it'll give you that edge. And it's that little bit of warmer air that's rising just that little bit quicker than all the other stuff that's hit and stopped. The only thing that's going to get you through that inversion is either a boomer that's going through or those little bits. And you gain about 20 meters in each turn, and eventually you break through and you're away. So it's make sure you just get those little bits and turn on them and keep your wing in them. And as you fall out, easing off the brakes, making that transition back to normal smooth as you can. And I don't mean flat. I mean, you can be banked and you can really crank it in to a core really tight. But as soon as you come out of it, just gently flatten out and then ease off the brakes and visualize where that core was, ease off the brakes so you increase the speed and puncture where that core is again and turn tighter on the next one. So you're using your dive as speed to get you to do a tighter turn in the smaller section of lift, which is the only way you're going to break through the inversion. There you go. So it gives you something to think about. So I think, right, do I need to be here? Yes. Right. So no place else better? No. Right. Now let's find the core. So I just cruise around and I call the baseline. So if it's half down, I think, right, that's my baseline. So I cruise around at half down and I'm thinking, oh, right, where's the little, and that's it. I've only got 2 seconds of it. I'll just try and turn in it. No, I'll ease off and flatten out. And I'll just do that permanently. But whilst I'm doing that, I'm looking around any signs. There's got to be a bird going up. There's got to be something. But I'm not letting it distract me from finding that core and locking into it. And then visualization is key. And the only way you can visualize where the core is if you know what your turn radius is. Because you've got to know it takes 8 seconds to do a tight turn round. But what is that in space? What, 8 seconds, how far is that? And that you have to know that so that you can then visualize in your head where the thermal is. Well, I just pulled out a diving turn, so therefore the core's over there. And so I know I've got to keep one more 180, and then as soon as I finish that, I'll let off the brakes, dive into where I know it's going to be before the vario's even told me, and then boof, there it is. And so you go round. That visualization is also important because your instruments are only telling you what's actually happening or happened. But if you can preempt that 2 seconds earlier, you can be way more efficient.
Excellent, Jocky.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any questions that they'd like to ask? Just click that hand button down there on the bottom of your screen. If you can't see, just wave your cursor around or wave your hand like
Jocky.
Phil just did.
Jocky, what was I going to say now? Oh, you mentioned in one of Scott's in hey? What?
Just,
can you hear me?
The old man memory, Phil. Have you forgotten your question? No.
No, I know my question. Can you?
Okay.
Can you? Oh, you can hear me.
Sorry, mate. Yes, we can hear.
Who's our guest? Yeah, when you were talking with Scott, well, an answer to Scott, you mentioned about brake position, and you indicated, and I know that for greater sensitivity, you hold the brakes up the top. So you almost got your hands through the brakes, and you're holding onto the line. And how to put brake on? Aren't you essentially already got, say, about 10 centimeters of brake on already? So like if you pull, say, 50% or less brake, as opposed to just holding the handles, you've got more brake on it originally. And so you're, how do you hold your brakes?
I always go through the handle and hold the top of the loop as a relaxing flight, but it depends on where your arms are. So you might think, right, through the handle and holding the loop gives you, and if you rest your arm, and all gliders will have about sort of at least 15 centimeters of travel, and then they'll sort of start, you'll rest. So you rest on that, just a tiny bit of pressure. So you're not pulling on any brakes or anything, but you're resting and you're feeling the glider. So you've got your hands and you want them in a comfortable position, not up there, but you want them comfortable. And if the thermal is strong, or there's a big fight, then I always get into that habit of taking a wrap and then holding the hand in a stronger arm position. Because if I was to pull it down here, then I'm holding it in a very weak position. My arm will get very tired holding it there. So if I think, right, it's going to be quite strong, I'm going to have to hold it for a long time, I'll take a wrap so that I can hold it there. And my arm's now relaxed. And you can even put your thumb under the strap so that you stay fixed. Because this inside generally is fixed once you're in. And it's this outside that balances whether you flat or go steeper. Flat, go steeper. This one doesn't really turn much. It's this one that does most of the work. So this is okay because it's taking little pressure and you can have it up there. And sometimes if you're not feeling it right, you take a wrap on this side as well, just to get it right. But that position, to make sure you're not tired in the thermal, is really important. So you can relax more because you're not fatigued. And then as I was coming up, if the thermal gets bigger and wider, then I'd probably back off and turn my radius back to slightly flatter, and then I'd undo the wrap and just sit in a more comfortable supine position once my work's over. So I change it all the time, whether going from a loop, but I'm always talking on a radio. So I always fly with, so there's my handle. I always fly like that and hold that. And then when I'm talking on a radio, I'm doing that. So I'm not pulling on the brakes, but I've always got them in my hands, generally. But yeah, I get into that habit. But if your hands, you know, we have loop bars on the top as well, like acro bars, and cross-country bars as well. They're very good for tandem, because when you take a wrap, it burns your hands. It squashes your hands after a while. So what you do is you go through the loop and you hold the bar and it rests you for a bit. You think, oh, I like that. But then after 10 minutes, it's hard on your forearm. So you think, I don't like that. And you change. But you've got to change all the time. The same, you know, gets tiring.
Cool.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Thank you. Can I put in another sneaky one, unless somebody else has got one?
Go on.
Is that all right? I can't see any other hands, but quickly. Or take your time if you want. But entering a small thermal, what's your chosen way of mapping the thermal? Do you go, I don't know, do you go 45 degrees to the left first and then start your right turns, for example? Or do you just go through and then turn right? Or talk to me about what you do.
Yeah. If it was a sort of gentle thermal, first of all, you get the confirmation because you get a draw. So you either get sink and then a draw. So you think, okay, it's coming. And then you get the sort of nice juttery air. And here we go. And then you start to pendulum up. And then your vario starts confirming all that. So your vario is late. Now, I would go neutral on brake, so a little bit of trim, so a little bit of brake. So you're feeling it. Now, if I start to get pushed one way or another, then I'll let that push happen, because that push is pushing me out. So then that'll tell me which way to go. So I just brake a bit, and if I'm getting pushed to my left, then I'll think, okay, I'm going to take a turn to my right. So I need to edge left, give me more space to go right. So I'm just efficiently dropping to then turn that way. If I don't feel anything, and it's just like that, then I'll think, okay, I'll go right. Because it's easier, that's where I go. But if ever you get pushed to the right, you'll turn left, and vice versa, or whichever way anyone else is going. But if I was on my own and I got nothing, I would then just hold it for as long as I could. It's a bit like playing pontoon, you know, getting to 21, 17, and you think, oh no, should I twist or stick? And in thermals, you're going up, and you think, well, 4 seconds allows you to do a full 360 and stay in lift. So if you stay in lift for more than 4 seconds, you're easy in. Okay. So, but if you go, and it's starting to go before 4 seconds, turn. Don't waste any more time, because that's all you've got. So turn, and turn tight, and then search later. But if I had 4 seconds, then I'd just ease off the brakes, get a very subtle pitch forwards, and I'd use that pitch to elegantly bank into the first 360, and I'd tidy it up. And once I'm in the 360, I'm thinking, okay, good, I'm happy with that. And I'm waiting for my pendulum to calm down. The cadence has to be perfect, because a lot of people think they're in and out of thermals when they're not. The glider's just doing this. And so it's going, and it's like, oh, where's the core? So, well, you're just flying terribly. So you've got to get that cadence perfect. So you think, right, my cadence is perfect, so the platform is perfect. So now if my cadence is perfect and the vario changes, it's because the air's changing. So now I'm mapping again. So I'm 360, okay, better lift there. So I'll either keep the turn on or I'll turn into that lift immediately. But if ever you get good lift, take it. Don't think, oh, I'll come around and get it later. Take it now. So if you get good lift on the inside of your bank and it pushes you out, then I put a little bit of brake on so it turns me to face it. Then I let off the brakes a little bit so it dives, and I use that dive to elegantly bank in without pitching too much. Because if you don't, if you just apply brake and turn, what happens is your glider pitches up, and now you're trying to brake hard with the glider's high angle of attack, and it'll spin. So it's rubbish. So what you want is the glider to be over your head and diving so that you elegantly bank. Now you can back off that bank if you need to, but you've got to have bank, and you've got to have elegant bank. But you can't enter a turn pitched like that. So you've got to, glider comes over your head and go. And people think, oh no, you know, all that waiting, I'm losing it. But it's not. The glider's coming over your head. You haven't changed your position. So you just let it just come over your head, bank, and go. And that, it feels good, you look good, you fly good. Whereas flying all over the place like that is because you're not listening to the wing or the thermal. So yeah, be as elegant as possible. But elegant isn't flat. That's the mistake everyone makes. Yeah. Elegant efficiency is flat. No. You can really be banked up and be elegant. And that's, again, where coastal flying really helps. Because you learn all that. Pitch, dive, roll, turn, reversal, you learn all of that. And that overlaid in a thermic arena is absolute perfection, because you know exactly how to turn and bank. And a great one to do is turn reversals. 360 one way, gently pull out, let it shudder to a stop, dive and turn. And you can only turn once it's diving. You can't turn when it's pitched up. And that's what you learn in a thermal. You don't turn. You know, people get a thermal and they, oh, this is great. And they turn and they fall out the back. They do a Chantal. They just do that. Whereas you've got to let it puncture and then turn, both because of the thermal and because of your pendulum.
Thank you.
So that explains why you're always so elegant and why I'm not, Jocky. Thank you. And I warn my flying pods partners on the coast, I'm now going to be doing more figure eights, so just be careful.
Yeah, figure eights. And I tell you what I love doing is doing figure eights, but diving towards the hill. I mean, careful. Yeah. And converting in the lift and then calming round. You know, just play with, not just in laminar air, but in lifting air and coming back round, and just get used to your glider. You know, doing a 360 and pulling out, diving, and then turning again. You don't have to go 360 the other way. Just get used to that pendulum and bank, and get used to making sure that you and the glider are traveling together. The worst is when it's doing this, really inefficient in both glide and turning. So you've got to make sure that because the hardest thing about our aircraft is the fuselage all the way is not with the wing. We have to learn about pendulum and delay. And that's what you have to really understand. And people don't. They think I brake and I turn. No, you don't. You brake, you wait, the glider starts turning, then you do. Then you build up brake pressure, then you add more. You know, so there's a delay. But sometimes you can use pendulum to your advantage. And that's what you learn when you're on the coast or on a site that you're familiar with. There's no point learning all this when you're having to learn how to film and all that. You've got to layer it, what you can cope with.
Guy, just quickly, mate. Thank you, Jocky. That's fantastic. And I've got to be honest, I guess I've been the kind that's kind of glided that. Oh, I found a thermal and I just banked that turn. I've never thought about letting the hands up and just sort of gracefully going into it. I'm certainly going to try that. Thank you.
Yes.
I was just going to say, we've got a few questions. So if I've got this right, we've got Ryan, and then we'll have a question from Tim, and then a question from Edge Demir, if that's okay. They've been waiting patiently. So thank you very much. Ryan, you want to fire your question away, mate?
Yeah, thanks, Jocky. Firstly, I think you should probably coin the phrase elegant bank. That's definitely one that I'd probably want for myself. But and I also wanted to say, yeah, thanks heaps for your last couple of videos, especially the last wing over video. Like I'm a new pilot. I've just been certified at the end of last year, so I've just been really trying. Sorry.
Congratulations. Sorry.
Oh, thank you, Jocky. I'm now like fully addicted, all in. I've really just been trying to get to know the wing and feel into the wing and know its limitations. And I wanted to ask, as far as wind speed and judging when it's too much, mostly from the coast, but I guess this would transfer to anywhere. I felt like I was riding the edge today, you know, full speed bar, ears, and you know, I'm trying to do the calculations. I'm seeing that, you know, it's around a 15 knot gust. I know that my trim speed's around, you know, 35 k's an hour, and I know I've got a bit of bar on hand. I'm flying a low B at the moment, so I know I've got a little bit to play with above trim speed, but you know, in the air, it just doesn't feel like I've got that much more to go. So I just wanted to, see if you had any safety tips for, you know, is there any calculations you use that, you know, what's, you know, is it more of a feel thing? Is it looking, you know, for me, I'm looking at the wind speed, and I'm also feeling what it's like on the launch, and I'm always looking to see what's coming. But is there any tips you can give there?
No, I mean, it depends on the person you are. So, you know, a feeling thing, you know, you described, you know, and also a logical thing. So you can look at the speeds. That is one piece of information that you can use to make a decision. But then it's not absolute, because wind speeds change and with the shapes of the hills and all sorts of stuff. So you can't say, oh, it's 15 knots, I'll be safe, because it might not be on that hill. So you just use each piece of information to then make a informed decision. You've got to, again, listen to your instinct, because your instinct is learning from previous experiences. And what happens is you can't pick a reason, but you're not happy today because on this hill with this wind, this happened last time. And a lot of people get dragged and hurt in high winds. Therefore, they're very cautious of it. And so it's about learning to be comfortable with certain level winds. And we're all different. So people, you know, there might be people with 1,000 hours go on the same hill you're on and think, oh, you know, what's he doing? You shouldn't be flying in this. That's only because they're scared of the wind. If it is tolerable, if other people are flying and they're not flying mini wings and things like that, then why can't you fly? So you go through that process of, well, it looks flyable, I would be happy with it. And I still do it now. You know, I have hills that we're going to go to in a minute, which we've been training on for years. And there's some wind levels that I think, whoa, no way. And sometimes you could be on a mountain inland in a thermic place and think, well, this is really top end. And you think, well, is that, you know, would I fly if I was on my favorite low hill in this strength wind? And you think, yeah, I would. So it's that building that experience and that skill set. But then you've got to think of, well, it's windy here because it's thermic, it's different, there's different reasons. But I would strongly recommend learning a tolerance of what is flyable and what isn't. But don't just rely on your speed bar to get you out of trouble. You've got to have more than just your speed bar to be able to get out of winds. And always think of what your option is. You know, what if I did get blown back, where would I go? And things like that. And also practice strong wind deactivation of your wing as well. But yeah, you know, you have to build up. You've got many years in front of you to build up that knowledge base of, yeah, happy with this wind, did it before with this glider on this day, happy, boom, go. Don't let other people say, oh no, I wouldn't go in this wind, if you've already done it and you know you've got that experience. But again, practice.
Yeah, that's good to know. It's like instinct kind of wins over formulas by the sounds of it, and sort of developing that, you know. Yeah,
it's only instinct based on experience. So that's the important thing. And you haven't got the experience, let's say, so therefore you've got to go with your logical side of your brain to work it out. But again, you can say, well, I'm happy with this, but I'll let that guy take off, see how he gets on. But if they cock it up, then your chimp will be screaming at you not to go. But you think, well, I could take off in this, in which case, brilliant. Because if you practice your ground handling, you know, if you want to go down to the beach, inflate it, and then walk up the hill, great. And if you're in the lift band, great, do it. Have confidence in that, because when you learn, there's an element of doubt. Doubt is what protects you. But what happens is you meet the ground suck posse, the people that are there not really to fly, but to talk to each other. And you look at them and think, well, that guy's really good. Why isn't he flying? And it's probably because he's going through a confidence dip. But he won't tell you that. And so you'll doubt yourself now. So it's a question of, by doing it again and teaching yourself, think, well, I'm all right with this, I'm off. Because the more you spend with the ground suck people, the less you're going to fly. So people like to say hello and take off. It's good.
Thanks a lot, Jocky. Yeah, makes sense.
We've got a question from Tim. Tim, just make sure your mic's unmuted, mate.
Just doing that now.
Beautiful.
Tim's coming out for the Oriental sky.
Good morning, Jocky. I've got a question regarding competition flying. Just recently getting into more and more competition stuff. Done a few competitions now, and I'm absolutely loving it. My question is in regard to team dynamics. Because I haven't been in a team before, what am I looking for in a team? What communications should we be doing? Give me some hints and tips on what I should be doing in a team in competitions.
Are you scoring as a team?
Not necessarily.
Okay. Well, paragliding is an individual sport, so we are all individuals. And a lot of individuals have got into paragliding because it's individual. They don't like people. They like flying. So, you know, you have to understand the character profile of all pilots. So you could be in a team with someone that you just want to use him or her for their points. And they want exactly the same from you. And understanding that is key, because then you don't get upset if they don't talk too much, or, you know, it's their character. So understanding each character is important. But that's why we talk about pods, and you select a team that is good for you, that make you feel good, that you laugh with, that you can share, you know, the same views with, that stimulate you, you enjoy being with. Because there's nothing worse than, you know, going, yeah, that's a great flight, and then this other person going, yeah, it's all right. You know, it just pisses on your fire, really. So you want people that have the same sort of character profile, but we're all different. So it's about respecting each other's differences. And when you're flying as a team, the key is communication. Make sure all your radios are good and they all work. Make sure you establish communication normally comes from the front and goes back to the back. The person at the back shuts up because they're just receiving the information from the front. If there's a turn point, or if the guy at the back suddenly turns into the guy at the front, then they might come on. But it's always information from the front. also, as a team, if you're flying in a comp, agree the crux points. So you get given your task and you say, right, let's have a look at this task. Why do they set that task? And where are the points that would put me down on the ground? You know, that valley crossing, deciding whether to go on the mountains or in the flatlands. These are the 2 points where someone could break away and win. So at those 2 points, as a team, you decide, right, what is our collective decision here? What are we going to do? If we're all 4 at that point and they've gone off in 2 different directions, do we split? And you've got to look at points and how that all works. But by understanding where the crux points are, you know to focus on that, coming up to it, to focus on these points. And sometimes you might see people making a decision getting low, and so you back off. And always remember that if you're scoring as a team, you're scoring individually, but collectively. So your top 3 of each team will score. So whatever you do, you protect the people that are scoring. So the guy that's probably not scoring, if you were together on a glide, you go out front and you let him pimp off you, because that's how you can fly as a team. Because the guys, so we had in the British team, we'll have non-scorers and they will flank the pilot that is the top. And only because if there's a glide, they'll go out lower than the top guy and prepared to go on the deck, but he'll mark where the next lift is. So that's how you can fly as a team. And also just make sure the banter's great at the end and you enjoy it. But, you know, you don't always pick your teams. You know, if you're in a national team, you might have to fly with people you compete with, you know, commercially. But it's understanding that respect, that communication, and that absolute professionalism. Because that's where you want to be. You want to represent your country.
There's a fair bit of communication, but obviously not distracting. So it's a balance, and I suppose it again depends on the personalities of the people. So yeah, interesting. Looking forward to it.
What we do is, you know, if you're in a situation where you're low and struggling, you can request silence or keep it down. You know, you just have to say up low, chat down, and everyone just shuts up. But you have to remember, when you've got back up to base, you can then say, thanks, guys. You can
back in
again.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Demir, waiting patiently, mate. Forgive me, I'm not sure if it's Edge or Demir, but please go ahead.
It's edge of it, but
Sorry, mate.
Jock, do you remember we met in Turkey, 2018?
Yes. Yeah.
How you doing? You probably remember these things.
Yeah. Yes.
Jock, just had a question. You mentioned Brazil a minute ago. Any tips on flying internationally? I know you go fly in Turkey. I don't know if you're going there this year, but we're not allowed to fly. I was hoping to get over there this year, but we're in lockdown at the moment. We can't travel. But I've got a dream of flying in South America, and Ralph, a friend of ours that most people might know, suggested would go. But any tips on A, flying overseas, B, just organising all that, or reaching out to people? What's been your experience?
First of all, if you go to Brazil, don't do Quixote, don't do the north. It's quite windy. If it's your first time, do calm conditions. All the big towns where look where the PWCs go. They've got infrastructure. They've got professional companies that do the going up and down and all sorts of stuff. So look where the PWCs go. Look where courses go. So Governor Valadares, there's some new sites opening in Brazil where there's PWCs, brilliant, all designed for big groups to fly. And it's normally because there's good flying. Also, get used to light wind conditions and just make sure you plan a lot. You look at all the routes people are doing from that site and you visualize a lot. But all the sites like Roldania in Colombia, these are all mega places that are all geared up. You just turn up and there's a guy that will take you up to the mountain. So you don't have to worry about things like that.
Okay.
And you can just focus on your flying, really.
Are you doing Turkey this year?
We're doing Turkey September, October, yeah. Unless.
Sorry, I can't be there. Yeah, I was really hoping to be there this year.
Well, yeah, we're doing Colombia. We're not doing Bulgaria, but Colombia next year. We're hoping to do it. Yeah, and Brazil. There's a crew going.
How do we find out about that Colombia trip? How do we?
If you go onto escapexc.com, it's all there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Jocky, Candy, is Kishada on this year?
Kishada, we're doing we're doing it at the moment, but because Brazil is such a hot place to go, it is likely it's going to be off. With all their millions of COVID
not real safe, is it?
It's not very safe.
Thanks, Jocky. Do we expect to see you in Australia anytime soon if we all get vaccinated? Roger, you got anything planned with Jocky? Roger, you got anything planned with Jocky for later this year or next year?
I can answer.
Mike might be muted now, right?
Yeah, we're hoping to go in March, the same dates. It's you know, my favourite trip is to Australia. Just hanging out with my see the same thing, a pod, and I do it for friendship more than anything else. And to be in a sky, a place where you love, sharing it with the people you love is the best. And to go to Australia to share time with your friends, downtime, because that's the other thing that kills me. You might go somewhere to go flying, but you're only flying for 5 hours of that day. The rest, you're stuck wherever it is. And if you don't enjoy that time, it chips away at your flying. So you have to enjoy the whole thing and try and create the environment where you do enjoy it and you do have a good time, even when you're not flying. If it's raining, which it did in Australia, but we still had a good time.
Did you see that video of that crazy guy on the couch?
Oh yeah, that was brilliant, wasn't it?
He wasn't strapped in, was he? I was trying to look for some sort of strap, but he just was not strapped in.
It was all right-ish. It was a great footage though. They'll use that more and more. Love that.
Well, you need a crazy Turk in each pod, don't you?
Yeah. You got your crazy Turk, you got your geek, you got your party animal.
For those of you who haven't done, a SIV with either Jocky and Roger, it's highly recommended, as is their XC Safari if you're trying to just get your skills up. I say both very, very technically useful.
So that's next March, hopefully? Yeah,
next March, yeah.
I don't know how you're going for time, Jocky. We only said an hour, but you're able to take another question or two?
I can take a question. I think they're loading up the van, so we're okay.
Anyone else for a question?
Well, just if anyone's thinking, Jocky, I just wanted to say I've been getting an enormous amount out of your videos. I recently subscribed to your YouTube channel. And,
great.
We talked about everything going on with COVID, and our disconnection with each other and flying. And there was one of your videos where I think your niece might have done the music. Absolutely beautiful. It was a piano piece.
Yeah?
Yeah, that was just like about everyone else, but some of these little paragliding videos are like mini holidays. You just sort of get transported away on your couch for a few minutes. They're really, really good. And I particularly liked one you did with a friend where you're flying in a lakes district somewhere and doing a bold view. That was
yeah. That was our latest one.
Yeah.
We're trying to get people out using, I'll tell you what, I'm going to show you our hill. Hang on.
Oh, wow. Oh. A bit greener than Manila.
And there's lovely cumulus clouds over there. So yeah, I can see I can see 10 flying sites from my window, from the office.
We're going to come and visit.
Great.
What's the address? What's the address?
It's the fly park in Braithwaite. But this is a laser measurer. So it's right outside the window. We hang gliders in front of this window. So it's as soon as it's flyable, we go and fly. We down tools, and all work stops because it's often not flyable. So you have to just say, "No, surf's up, we're out," and people get used to getting crap service from us. Because we're sunny, then they're not going to get anything done.
Hey, Roger, you got any questions for Jocky?
Mate!
I don't know. What do you ask a sky god? Except for maybe tell us a joke, Jock.
Something about bananas, I believe, isn't it? Something about bananas.
I don't know if that's suitable. Jock's got many a funny story. I'll let him choose one.
I can't. What? You can't put me on the spot.
And you've got a good one about bananas, I'm told. Bananas and flying.
Yeah. Well, I'll share it later.
Jocky, where are you based?
In the Lake District, in the north of England.
Okay.
And it's like mini Alps, and you can if you go into the YouTube channel, the last 2 films were flying above it, and it's very pretty. It's why I came here really. I was brought up in London, but I came and to work here because it's beautiful.
Is that the Southern Lakes District or the northern end of it?
The northern end.
Northern end, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, the northern end. I can show you. Look, here we go. Here's a map. And here, can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is Skiddaw, and I live here. And this is all the southern mountains. The highest mountain in England is there. Wow. And we fly from here, we'll fly to there, and we do a triangle around. So it's a very pretty place. And you'll see it. If you go to the YouTube channel, you can see us flying across it. And it's very pretty. It doesn't look like England, really. But it's pretty.
And cold?
Not today. I'm wearing shorts. Look, Aussie. I've even got Aussie socks on. But as soon as I get into Australia, I go straight to get my Bonds socks.
Okay, well, if we've got no more questions, last chance for folks. I'd really like to thank you, Jocky, for spending a bit of time. And Roger for helping us. If you need to get hold of Jocky in the meantime, go to Roger.
And Roger will tell you the banana story when it's more searchable.
I want to know why Roger's in the dark and we can't see his face.
He's a dentist.
Yeah, it's what I'm doing with my hands, buddy.
It makes him look better. Can we give Jocky a big clap from everyone who's still online? Thank you, Jocky. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.
Take care. Have a lovely season when it comes, and see you in March.
Thanks, Jocky. Bye.
Thank you.